Welcome to the Art of Pivoting Your Life, everyone. I'm Michelle Carboni. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, intuitive coach, other stuff. And this show just every time is different. So today I have the lovely Diana with me, and she's an author. She's a fellow Cassandra, as we call them, for Cassandra Syndrome. And if you've watched any of my other shows, you know I've definitely talked about that. So anyway, we have Diana we're gonna have a fun chat, and she and I have met before. So if you're like, oh, you guys are familiar, we are, and we're in some groups together. And so yeah, we're just gonna dive in. Thank you, Diana, for coming on today.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy to.
I'm
This
so
is
glad.
great.
And so, your first book, so do like a quickie, here was my first book, and then tell us about your second book.
Yes, so my first book is called Lonely in Love. You can find it on Amazon. It's also an Audible, which is nice. And it's Lonely in Love. My full name is Diana. It's under D. River Martin. Almost forgot, but because I'm changing the name for the next, we use pen names. For that book, it is a collection of stories about a neurodiverse relationship that focuses on the man specifically being the person who is autistic and the woman who is not, and what it's like to be in a relationship like that. And mainly for that book, Lonely in Love is the light bulb moment because they did not know that their person was autistic. Neither did the person know.
Right.
Some of them were diagnosed, some of them were not. You could just tell from the similarities. And I always keep in mind that each autistic person is different. The similarities in the book were profound.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put the stories together because I was just, I don't know, it's just the person I am. I'd get on the Facebook groups and I'd see these stories and they were so secretive and to them and the world didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's what got me to do that first book. So then as I would read my book and I got feedback from it, I wanted to dive deeper. And I was on a lonely road. I talk about it in the book. It's like a teaser. I no, I was I was on a lonely road
Was it a
in
long,
Nevada.
lonely road?
Long, lonely road. Gosh, my whole life. No. Um, the and I wanted to dive deeper into it. And I kept thinking of the Cassandra phenomenon, the Cassandra syndrome I had found. Um, we'll talk about that later. The man who um, made the definition real about it being in a neurodiverse relation causes this Cassandra phenomenon. And I was trying to think of the name of my first book. And well, it'll be in the next book. Yeah, it's kind of like a teaser of how I found this name, but it was on this lonely road. And I came up with Lonely in Truth because the Cassandra is all about nobody believes us.
Right.
And you go out into this normal world out there that we forget about because we get engulfed in this relationship. It becomes us. We are sucked into it so hard because every single moment is grappling with this person that just thinks so far and different from us that we're baffled. And just to get it out there that, this is real. And
Mm-hmm.
and so we would try to talk about it with people or even with therapists who couldn't understand
Right.
that no, they really are doing this baffling stuff that we can't figure out. And the fact that they're autistic, okay, it feels bad, it feels mean, it feels awful. And I I've been really careful using narcissism because it's different,
Oh, yeah.
but it feels the same and the result is the same. So I
Right.
don't even want to use that word.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the mind blindness, the not being in your shoes, not being able to see your perspective, not being able to, the masking having to come off when they get home because they're exhausted from wearing it all day, because out in the world, they do need to do that to survive and succeed.
Yeah.
And then at home, it has to come off at some point. That's what Mark Jordan was talking about, what he struggled with. That we're just left with this person that is just not the person we knew.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get help, we're trying to get understood, and we go out and it's our problem. It becomes our problem. Well, you're being too sensitive. Oh, he's just being. So the next book, Lonely in Truth, is I have around 14 stories. It's still like Lonely in Love, it's stories. But these stories really talk about the hardships, and it just goes deeper mainly.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it focuses on the Cassandra phenomenon. So yeah.
Yeah. I yeah, I think that trying to explain Cassandra syndrome to someone is always interesting. But I like using the, where it came from as far as
Yes.
Greek mythology and, and
Mm.
actually, I don't know if you've seen on Netflix, there's a show,
Uh,
um, it's with the guy from The Fly.
yes, I know what you're talking about. What's it
Yes.
called?
It starts with a K. Is it Chaos?
Chaos. You know,
Chaos.
they took it off the air. I heard they took it off the air.
What?
Yes,
It
I
was
was so
so good.
upset because
Um,
I knew exactly who Cassandra was.
yes, as soon as she was like, so if you haven't seen Chaos, for those who are watching, so Chaos,
I know.
it's all Greek mythology, Zeus and all the gods and
Yes.
their kids and all that's in the drama. And but
Yes.
Cassandra
Oh,
goes up to this woman and is like, gives her prophecy, and
uh-huh.
the curse of Cassandra is nobody believes her, and she's always
Right.
right. But
Right.
she still goes along telling
Yep.
people their stuff. And one of my girlfriends is also married to a man that's autistic, and so she and I were at a museum, and there was a painting of Cassandra, and so we both we're like, oh, we need to take a picture. Here we are, Cassandra's all together.
Yes.
And honestly, I don't consider myself a Cassandra anymore. I
Good.
consider myself recovered because I don't give a flip if somebody believes me or not.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I know what I know, and I stand in my truth, and I stand in my
Hmm.
power. And I think that's part of the healing process for a Cassandra is to see, like, so for me, seeing, okay, when I was growing up, my dad was around. He was present as far as physically. He was not mentally present. We did not have a connection. When I have friends who are like, oh, I need to call my dad because I'm having a problem. I'm like, what is that like? I don't want to call my dad about a problem. He's going to want to get a shotgun and go kill people, or
Right.
he's not going to understand. Like, and I have no real connection to him because he was, he had his own things when I was growing up, and which is fine. And I don't hold it against him, but it was what it
Mhm.
was. He wasn't really
Right.
there. And so, like, looking back and going, okay, so I didn't have this father figure. And then looking at when I met my ex-husband, and like, he was intelligent and he was funny and he paid attention to me, and all I wanted to do was get married because Disney had programmed me for that, right? Like, I wanted to be my princess in the castle.
Yes, yes.
And so, like, realizing, oh, here's what I did. And growing up, I walked on eggshells. My sister
Mhm.
had her issues and had temper tantrums, which now we know she's ADHD and sensory processing disorder. And
Okay.
so for her, sound is she's like Superman hearing. And
Mhm.
growing up, I had to be very quiet. I needed to make myself small. I couldn't be this loud, boisterous person that I actually am.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so figuring out, oh, okay, so when my ex-husband would have meltdowns or started revealing his true self, or
Hmm.
couldn't
Hmm.
hold on to the mask anymore. And I
Hmm. Hmm.
remember the first time I had got any inkling was I came home, and when I went in our bedroom, there was a punch in the wall. And I was like,
Hmm.
what happened here? He's like, I got mad and I punched the wall. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'd never been with someone who would do something
Yeah.
like that, right? But like, when I started training in hypnotherapy is when it hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I married my sister.
Ah.
I married
Hmm.
that walking on eggshells feeling, not
Yes.
understanding what I was doing. And that's what we all do. And so
Hmm.
I think part of the
Hmm.
healing process for a Cassandra is to look at, okay, why did I not have boundaries? Why have I stayed in a marriage where I wasn't happy, what is it, what am I perceiving it's giving me? And let me heal that, because we can give ourselves everything that we need. I mean, yes, we need
Right.
community as humans, but we can
Right.
give ourselves validation. We can give ourselves love and
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem and validation, and getting to that place where you do give yourself all of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
is a powerful place to be, because then,
Yeah.
like, as I've been dating, like, some people I
Mm.
talk to, like, oh, these red flags get thrown out, and
Right.
I'm like, you know what? Nope. Bye. Have a nice
Yeah.
life. Because
Right.
why am I gonna allow my boundaries to be crossed for someone else to be in my life? Like, you know what? It's not your thing, and that's okay. Like, we don't have to get along with every single person. We don't have to be in a relationship with every person we meet on
Mm-hmm.
Bumble. Like, we can just go, okay, this isn't right for me. And then you have these
Yeah.
really freaking high standards. And I tell you what, if I even want to meet someone, they
Right.
have to be like, I require emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
Because that's something that someone
That's
on
the
the
main
spectrum
one.
is going to struggle with, is that emotional intelligence. And I had to learn emotional intelligence myself. I wasn't
Right.
feeling
Right.
my feelings because of
Yeah.
childhood, right? So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to, and then, you know what? Feeling your feelings sucks sometimes. Like, I don't love
Yeah.
feeling my feelings all the time. I went through a breakup
Yeah.
this summer and it was terrible. But you know what? it, it's part of the human experience to feel those feelings and to not let
Yeah.
them simmer in our bodies and cause
Yes.
disease, or what we like to call dis-ease.
Disease. Yes.
Right? And so I think part of the Cassandra journey is looking within and looking at
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started to do that is when I started to get the strength to see, like, I'm not happy. There's nothing wrong with my ex-husband. He's a great guy. I mean, he's kind, he tries his best, but he's on the spectrum, and he has meltdowns, and he doesn't handle
Mm-hmm.
frustration very well, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay. But we didn't want the same thing, really. We didn't want that. I wanted that deep emotional connection. Let's talk about the universe and spirituality and, like, magic and
Right.
all these things, and he's not into that, and that's cool. We
Uh-huh.
did, it's just like, we I realized I'd shaped myself to be someone that wanted to be with him, instead of because I just needed someone,
Yeah.
instead of who is a good fit for me and what I
Mm-hmm.
want, and so it's interesting to go through that journey and kind of see, okay, what did I used to do, and
Yeah.
what am I doing now? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've found that as well in what you've been working on.
I did when I read the stories, and it's painful. You start to what does somebody help about vicarious trauma? Start to live through what they're going through. You start to feel it, and I have always, I've struggled with definitely the confidence to be on my own, to be not so swept up by this person who's just doing his best. I'm doing my best,
Yeah.
and the way I found to find healing was respite and living separately from him. That was really my only way out. And I haven't left him, but we just live separately, and we kind of have our own journey, because at the end of the day, it's you and this person.
Yeah.
And the Cassandra phenomenon, it's, my book it's always about awareness. And I thought, but this is my last book I'm doing on this, because you do get to a point, if you get yourself loving yourself,
Hmm.
and you get yourself at, just like how you were saying, the strong boundaries, all those things, kind of learning, a lot of times, as hard as it's been, I've been grateful for him, because I've learned so much about myself.
That's the
Holy.
thing, right? We can turn
And,
this into
I've
gratitude,
seen,
right?
of course, and I've
Yeah,
seen marriages where there's just so lovey-dovey. I mean, on the outside, we don't know what the inside, but
sure.
kind of, your typical, like you were saying, it was so different for your friend to go to her dad, where and so that, and I think, gosh, they know so little about such interesting things that I've learned about myself, because they've been in the kind of this happy bubble where they didn't need to grow, and not, I mean, I would not wish this on anyone. Hard.
It's
Um,
it's
but
difficult to not have that. we all want intimacy, and intimacy is not just sex.
Yes.
It's that, you
Oh
know,
gosh, yes, the
getting
emotional.
below surface level and
Yeah.
like having real conversations. And that was something else I realized.
Hmm.
Like, I couldn't have the kind of conversations I wanted to have with my ex because,
Right, right.
he's very literal. And, like one time we were in the car and I was like, I think elephants telepathically talk to each other. Like, I think there's some other thing going on that we can't see. And I think it's really interesting because I love elephants. And he was like,
Oh,
no.
me too.
And he did, he couldn't even play with
Just
this
nothing.
concept because no,
Right,
it's not true. And I
right.
was like, I feel like I need a dissertation available to me to be like, look, here's my dissertation on why I think elephants telepathically talk to each other. Like, I'm just like, I just watch videos of elephants all the time. And like, when you see them as a herd and you see like one is hurt and like immediately
Mhm.
the matriarch is like, boom, there,
Yeah.
and everyone else comes in and they all work together. And like, there's no way they're doing what they're doing without some other form of communication that we can't
Hmm.
see. It's not just
Hmm.
noises, it's not just
Hmm.
body movements. There's something deeper here. And,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to explore that, which is fine. He's allowed to not
Right.
explore that. I don't, his special interest was music.
Hmm.
Very
Hmm.
talented musician. Not really my thing to listen to the same 5 seconds of a song over and over again while you
Hmm.
tweak all the little levels. Like, that's just not fun for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really wished for him for a long time. I wished he would find someone else that was into
Hmm.
music, and I think his current girlfriend is a singer. So I'm like, awesome.
Oh,
Hopefully
yeah.
they're making some music together, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
I want him to be happy. I have so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
compassion for him, and I think you would probably agree with this. I think most autistic people had very traumatic childhoods and have a lot of trauma,
Oh,
and part
yes.
of what we deal with is just that, trauma response, that the programming they received that was a little bit different when they were growing up, and which we all have. I mean, it's like, I hate to say
Hmm.
it, moms, dads, like, you guys are traumatizing your children. And it's okay. You're doing your best. They chose
Hmm.
you for a reason. They chose you for
Hmm.
the trauma that you will give them, for the challenge of healing it later in life. Like, that's because spiritually what we're here for. Like, we come here, we're like, oh yay, let's play this game, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna have this trauma, and then I'm gonna heal this. And
Right.
like, or I have that opportunity if I choose to take it, right? And
Hmm.
cool. Like, I mean, I literally, I don't know anybody who doesn't have some sort of trauma from childhood, usually from their
Hmm.
parents. In addition to, I mean, oh my gosh, this guy in seventh grade called me Thunder Thighs. That still
Hmm.
bothers me. I still don't talk to that guy because,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
it really traumatized me because I wasn't fat back then.
Oh, God.
Like, he could call me Thunder Thighs now, and I'll be like,
So
hell
cruel.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna own these Thunder Thighs.
Yeah. I, I love that there is more awareness. I have a little more hope for children. There's a lot of other craziness in the world, but as
Yeah.
far as awareness with mental illness, it is out there so much more. And it's
Yes.
because the world's gotten so crazy that we've had to grapple, we've had to
It's been
latch
this like,
onto it. I know.
yeah,
And I think we're in a pendulum swing on some of things. And I think there is, even with the
100%.
Cassandra syndrome, the phenomenon on that is there are, women in these situations that are terrified, and they can go to anger. They can go to making their husband be an enemy and be evil and
Yeah.
all of that. And maybe they are. Maybe there is much more to what's going on, but the sadness is that it's awful. And so there's a pendulum in that, but I think we're becoming more aware of it, just the whole world in general,
Yeah.
with
Oh,
mental illness. And we're connecting with so many more people with social media and
yeah.
really diving into and the whole, well, everything going on. I won't talk political, but it just the
Yeah.
differences and the understanding of, again, I say mental illness.
Yeah.
And I think kids, especially way back when there wasn't this diagnosis with autism, ADHD, and all these different things that we're learning about,
Yeah.
they were bullied. They were, and
Eh,
I don't think I mentioned it, um with Mark Jordan, who did this interview. Um, I want to say how he said there's so many negativities he heard throughout his childhood because they didn't understand autism, ADHD.
Yeah.
And so they're grown up with that, or they're just given up on praise. He doesn't feel like he can take in praise because everything on him has always been negative. A lot
Yeah.
of the nonverbal comes from my guy is so nonverbal because why speak? People are just gonna get on him for
Oh,
anything he says,
right. Or just
and
not listen.
or not listen, or not even, or just say he's weird or mean or all of that, which I've done to him. Um, and and it's kind of created this really angry person.
Yes.
And it's very, very, very sad. And I understand it. It does hurt me though. So I have to put up my own boundaries. Like you said, you need the dating now, you need somebody with emotionality. You're not going to do that again. Because it
Oh,
is very hard. This poor human, this poor little baby that was born just wasn't even given a chance.
right.
And but like I know Dr. Romani, although she talks a lot about narcissism, but I love how she said, but still you have to think of your well-being, even though they can't help it, even though they may have a disorder, they can't
Right.
help. If it
Uh,
hurts you, you still have to take care of yourself. And
that
that's
is
where we
this.
as compassionate women, we forget to do that.
Yes.
And
And
it destroys us. And then we get mad at them. It's on us.
just yesterday, so I'm studying A Course in Miracles. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
Yes, very much. Yeah.
okay, so I was reading Alan Cohen's book, A Course in Miracles Made Easy, and
Hmm.
this passage just stuck out to me. And it was like, basically, if me suffering doesn't prevent someone else from suffering, and me being poor doesn't make someone else rich. And
Oh,
right, and
right.
and so it's like, yeah, like why are we guilting ourselves into staying in situations that don't
Oh.
feel good for the other person? It's not really helping them,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And why are we hurting ourselves instead of hurt? Like for me, the don't want to hurt him thing was huge. I did not want to
Mhm,
hurt him, and
mhm,
and really
mhm.
I was praying for him to find someone else and leave me.
Yeah, I've done that.
Be right? Like how
Yeah,
jacked up is that? Because
I
like
know.
uh, just
Where's your
leave.
say in this?
Yeah, like
Now,
why am I putting it
and
on him?
right.
Like I don't need to like I just need to go, you know what, this isn't right for me anymore and I love
Mhm,
you, but I don't want to do this anymore and that's okay. And like yes, he's going to be hurt. I'm going to be hurt. But like
mhm,
why am I
mhm.
going to only hurt myself and just
Right,
suffer in an
right,
unhappy marriage when
right,
like I could leave?
right.
And
And I
and
think,
man,
and of course, it's not that easy. There's a cycle of, I'll say the word abuse. There's a cycle of abuse, and it is just being ignored. Being mine
silent
was doing a
treatment.
lot of the silent treatment, a lot of financial, because I depend on financial. There's a lot of financial abuse, but it was just withholding or not trusting on his. But it became abuse into my body and my soul.
Yeah.
And so there's a cycle of that. You're so beaten down that when they do come around, when the love bombing, because the love bombing happens when
Oh
they have
yeah.
their mask on, when they don't, they're not doing it malicious. They're
No, but
also still taking care of themselves.
yeah.
You get that one morsel that tastes so good. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been off sugar for 3 months. I have, and I had a Cadbury egg and it was the best. And they're not that great.
I love the inside of Cadbury eggs. They're so good.
And okay, they're good, but when you haven't had sugar and you eat that, oh, and it's the same. So that cycle of abuse is hard to leave. So we have to recognize that
Oh,
also.
totally. And I
And
used to enjoy the
oh
love bombing. And towards the end,
gosh.
I would be like, oh, I'm gonna take advantage of this love
Oh
bombing.
oh, gosh. It's
Or
now you recognize it. You recognize it. You've gone that, and you kind of, because I know when I'm away from him, he's a lot nicer to me because
mhm,
I'm out of his home where he needs to unmask and has his schedule, and I disrupt that.
yeah.
So living apart from him really works. It's like we're dating again.
I
It's
think
like if he can be
honestly,
relaxed and in his home and get that recharge, and then do so now it's not just love bombing, it's just kind of dating again, kind of, but I am still aware when I do feel that morsel of, oh, he's being so nice to me. Now I'm aware and I just think, oh, okay, I'm going to ask for a little more money right now.
right? Well, and I think what's interesting is like
So it's crazy.
my ex, I loved going out with him to dinner or whatever, like going out with friends
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it would always be great. It would always be so much
Right.
nicer. But a lot of times I would get a lecture in the car on the way home because of something I
Me
said.
too. I'm so glad you said that. Sorry, I got excited because then I didn't want to go out with him again because that lecture at the end. Oh,
Yeah,
go
well,
ahead.
and
I
I was just like,
interrupted
I never knew what I was gonna say that was
you.
gonna
Yeah.
warrant, really kind of an attack. And it was funny one time we had been at dinner at our like regular place, and um, we talked about Lord of the Rings. And I don't like
Mm.
watching violence, so
Yeah.
therefore, I'm not a fan of watching Lord of the Rings. Do I
Mhm.
hate it? No, I don't hate it. I just
Mhm.
prefer to not watch gratuitous violence. If you could give me
Right.
a version of Lord of the Rings with that stuff cut out, I okay.
Yeah.
And plus, it would be much shorter. And so, anyway, they came up, and he was like, "Oh, Michelle hates Lord of the Rings," and I was like, "No, I don't. Stop
Oh
telling
no.
me how I feel." And he would that was the
Yeah.
thing. He would tell me how I felt about things, and I and wouldn't listen when I'm like, "No, okay, maybe." I mean, we were together a very long time, so I'm like, "Yeah, maybe 15 years ago, I felt like
Mm.
this about this, but."
Mhm.
I'm a different person now. Like I've changed. I've grown. I do different, we as humans, that's what we do. We're evolving. And don't tell me how I feel about things. But then on the ride home that day, he called me a mean girl. And I like from the movie. And I was like, he was like, "You're just being a mean girl." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, and that was at a point when I kind of knew I wanted to leave, so I just shut up. I didn't talk,
Yeah. Yeah.
the rest
Yeah.
of the ride home. And I was just like, "You're an a-hole." Although he would call himself an
Right.
a-hole, so he was owning that.
Yeah. That's gosh, we have the same guys. That see the similarity is so interesting sometimes.
Yeah,
But
but one thing I was
my
going to say was he told me he was
yeah.
always in a state of frustration, that he was constantly frustrated.
Mm.
And so if any little extra thing
Mhm.
happened, that was when we would get a meltdown. So the computer's not working. And
Yeah.
you know how some people have trouble with watches and electronics like on
Hmm.
their body, and I think it has to do with their electronic field or their magnetic field being different. But he would throw things, on the
Mm.
break them. I've had to block my face from shrapnel hitting it.
Oh
I've
my
had to protect the
goodness.
dogs because they were freaking out, right? Like, and I
Gosh.
really wanted to do what you were doing, the living apart together, because I thought, okay, if I
Yeah.
had my own place and I had peace, because even if he was not in the room with me, but was in the house, it changed
Oh yeah.
the energy of the house, and I wouldn't feel
Yes.
comfortable. But I would get yelled at for. I was talking to a
Yeah.
girlfriend, and we were just talking on Zoom. It was like 10:30 at night, and he
Mhm.
usually didn't go to sleep till 11 or 11:30. He would watch YouTube videos in bed. So I thought, okay, well, he's probably just watching YouTube, cool. And so he yells at me that I'm being too loud, and he's because he's going to sleep. And I was like, okay, and I like immediately got off. And the next day, he comes in the house and he says something to me, and I replied softly. And
Mm.
he comes over and he's like, "Well, last night you were yelling, rah, 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 and now you're just
Mm.
whispering." And he would just was alternating his volume as he was yelling at me about how I was too loud the night before. And I was just like sitting there going, "This is why I'm leaving. I don't deserve to be yelled at
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
made a mistake." Like I literally looked at the clock, it was 10:33, and I thought, "Okay, we're good for another few minutes for me to talk to my friend."
Mhm.
And no, we were not, apparently. And then I got
Yeah.
yelled at about it. So it was like, I don't know if you've had those similar kind of things, but it was just like, oh my God.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was waiting for a really important phone call last week, and I just automatically keep my phone on silent because I've been doing it for 15 years. But now I'm in this home by myself. He's not here, but his energy in my brain is still there.
Sure.
And Romani talks about this. Their voice is still in your head. And I still keep my phone on silent. And why I missed you this first, well, I just, and so. I see it and I just still do it. And it's funny because you just get in this habit. But yeah, walking on eggshells with the noise was huge.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying, it's like we have the same people. And he, with like going out for dinners with friends or whatever was rare. Um, every time we get in the car after the meal or the outing, oh, they talk too much. That's what he'd always say. They talk too much. I can't do it. And so I finally, my last time with him was the last time. I can't even do anything with him now. He
Yeah.
wants me to go to a work party with him that I've done to and I won't go because I'm so out of the group. When I go there, all the wives know what the husbands are doing, I don't know anything that's going on. I don't know anybody because he
Right.
doesn't talk about me. He doesn't tell me anything about his work. Whatever is his work, his outside, I'm not involved. I feel like a doormat in his house that helps him wipe his feet off to keep the dirt from that. It sounds
Yeah.
so terrible. But when you look at their perspective, and like you said, he was telling you who you are, what you like, what you hate. He doesn't see you grow as a person because you
Hmm.
say that one thing, it's black and white, that's forever. That's
Yeah.
kind of how their mentality goes because it's so hard for them to grow. That's why their emotional intelligence hasn't grown. That's why, because it's just harder.
Yeah.
And I keep bringing up Mark Jordan, and I know that it's not. I didn't say what video he was on, and but I just had heard his podcast right before we talked, and how um, now I've lost my train of thought. But he he said how there's constant noise going on in his brain.
Yeah.
There's a podcast, he did examples, there's a lecture, there's a something, there's always a stuff going on in his brain where he doesn't even get to the outside world because he's listening to all this stuff in the brain. And it made sense to me
Yeah.
when I think of Jay, like he is just so focused on everything that's going on in this brain. He has no room for anything else. And so
Yeah.
that's where you find the compassion. But again, it kills me. I cannot be yelled at like you. We cannot be
Yeah.
with any little thing because they're on edge. What about us? We're humans.
Exactly.
We're
Yes. And
on
that's where
edge
it's
too.
like,
Like
okay, I can
where
have,
do we get
yeah,
our
we
grace
we
and
need our
our
compassion too, right? And that's where it's like,
yes.
you know what? We have to have the compassion for ourselves. And
In this relationship we do, we have to
we
make it for
have to
ourselves because we don't
because
have it from them.
yeah, I mean, very rare would I mean, and he would take care of me physically, like if I was
You
sick or
too.
whatever, right? Although
Well,
I got the
financially.
shingles, and when I got shingles, it was New Year's Eve, and I came home early. Like he didn't go out with me, and I came home not long after midnight because I had a headache, and he decided to give me the silent treatment for 3 days. So I decided I'd been sleeping in one of the guest rooms that we had, and I decided to sleep in our bedroom just because I thought, okay, if I get really, really sick, I want him to know because, like, what if I just die in bed in the guest room and I'm dead for 3 days because he's ignoring me and he hasn't noticed that I haven't left the room? Like, those are literally the thoughts that went through my mind. I was like, I mean, literally, he would not talk to me for 3 days. And I'm just like, and I thought it was just a migraine. And then I started seeing the rash on my arm. So once I knew I had the shingles, he was a little more compassionate with me and started talking to me again. But I was just like, why do I have to be sick for you to talk to me?
Yeah.
Like, the
Yeah.
silent treatment is not an okay treatment. It's not okay. Like, if you have a problem, we need to talk about it. But I will say, I did a detachment style test not long after I left him, and mine was
Mm,
disorganized, fearful, avoidant. And so,
mm.
okay, I'm avoidant, I'll admit it. And you know what? He is too. And so, when you have two avoidant people,
Oh gosh.
you can last a really long time because neither one of you wants to talk about the problems. Neither one of you wants to address those, right? And
Right.
part of my growth has been the last boyfriend I had. I really worked. I had to push myself so hard, but I expressed myself when I needed to.
Mm.
When something came up, I was like, okay, I need to talk about this with you, right? And it was so difficult. But man, that really helped me grow and
Yeah.
to get through. You know what? It didn't kill me to
Yeah.
talk to someone about, hey, when this happened, I felt like this. How can we work?
Mhm.
But to come to the table, not accusatory, not
Right.
attacking, right? And to come in a place of like, hey, let's work on this as a team. And But my ex would say, we're a team, and I'm like, are we? Because I never felt
Hmm.
like a team. Like he would say I was, well, I think one time he said he thought I was his best friend, and I was like, really? You're not mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you don't treat me like a best friend. Like, but I
Hmm.
think for girls, best friends are different than for guys,
Oh yeah. They're
right? And
more, they
guys
seem more
just,
surface.
yeah,
Yeah.
guys are just like, oh, we play video games together. That's my best
I
bud.
know.
We
They
do,
don't need that like we do.
yeah, they don't need
But
that.
that's the whole typical guy thing.
Yeah,
I remember my therapist saying, and I've said it too, it's like it's typical guy on steroids with our guys. It is a whole nother level of crazy. And it's, when you talk and you said about the 3 days waiting in there, I just wrote in my book about the reason I'm in a separate house right now is because I had a hysterectomy.
right.
It was very extreme. And he just disappeared when I needed that care. And I got COVID a week after,
Oh, yeah, I remember
and I
that.
thought I was going to die. And I said, um, I'm going to lay here for 3 days. He might smell something rotting before he comes in. And just like you say, 3 days, it seems to be the number because I have another woman who told me she actually had a seizure or a stroke or something and laid in her bed for 3 days with no help.
Oh
It
my gosh.
actually happened. And hearing her story, I get goosebumps because
Yeah,
that's why I told him I have to get out. I did all the ultimatums, everything I did to make sure he got me a house for myself,
yeah.
for
And I
to
think
find
living apart
community, to
together,
find it's
is,
working.
it works.
It's Yeah, right now I do have to sell this home. So I'm in a very precarious situation again because I know I'm going to have to go through all again. Do I have the energy? I'm going to have the energy.
Yeah,
At least I'm not recovering from a hysterectomy. Um,
right?
but it's so weird to tell him how great this is working, and for him to still say, "Oh no, you just come live with me," like I'm starting over. Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, and this is where
But
your boundaries are going to come in, right? Like where you
exactly,
go, you know
exactly.
what?
And
You don't
I
work
know
with
what
me
to
living there.
say. Yeah, I know what to say now. I know how to do. It's going to be a rough road, but I cannot, I will not live with you. And he won't, for him, I am his lifeline. He does feel I'm his partner. He does feel he needs so little from me. It's
Yeah.
very interesting, but what he needs from me is extreme to him.
Mm.
Just a person that's there, a person to show work that he has somebody, that
Oh,
kind of weird thing
almost like you're
too.
his beard.
I'm his what?
You're his beard.
Heard that. That's
Have
good.
you ever heard
Yeah,
that?
no.
Oh, so
And
like gay guys will have a woman as like their beard. Like,
no, I love it.
like
Okay.
they're like, look, I'm normal.
Yeah,
I have this, I'm not gay, I have a wife, right? Like
yeah.
that's kind of a thing is like, oh, it's just
And
my
it
beard.
sounds so bad, but to him, it's just normal and okay. And why would I be questioning it? It's
Yeah.
just great.
Well,
You're here,
I think they
it's
learn hyper independence too.
oh, yeah, he
And
definitely, he won't. And like, it's just because I listened to Mark right before we talked, but he said how they don't ask for help. Most of the
yeah,
time, they just don't ask for help because
yeah.
it just doesn't, and because the world is so different than they are.
Well, I would
Yeah.
if I offered to help with anything,
Uh-huh.
um, I mean, I don't know how to do stuff, right? Like you have to show me.
Oh
And
yeah, he
he
could
stopped
not
at
show me.
I was like, let me help you. And he'd be like, no, you're not going to do it right.
Oh.
You're gonna mess it up. You're not gonna
Hmm.
listen,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
And I was just like, okay, well, I guess you're just gonna suffer doing it by yourself. I mean, it was very rare he would ask for help from, even his friends.
Hmm.
Like to put things up in like we had a gazebo in our backyard. He couldn't do it himself. Like
Hmm.
could not. Obviously, it's a huge metal gazebo.
Yeah,
So like he
yeah.
actually had to ask for help, and it was just like, you know, it was very frustrating for him because it
Hmm.
didn't go the way he wanted it to go. And
Yeah.
I mean, it still worked and it was fine, but it's just like they get these ideas of how things need to be because they're so smart. I mean, and
Hmm.
and I had to finally tell him. He would be like, "Oh, what if we do blah blah blah?" And I was like I can't visualize. When I close my eyes, it's black. I don't. I don't have very good spatial awareness. Like that's just not my thing. And so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, when you describe something to me, I can't see it. Where he has a very vivid imagination
Yep.
and sees
hmm
everything and all the
hmm
angles and all the things. And I'm like, and I think that's awesome. I wish I had that, but I don't.
hmm
And so I'm like, you almost need to draw me a picture so I can imagine what it looks
hmm
like. Because
hmm
we're not going to get any, but I finally had to break down and actually communicate. So that's the thing too. I
Yep.
think it's like a lot of us are afraid to communicate because of how we've been treated when we've communicated before,
Of course.
right? Like
Oh
sometimes we get
yeah.
attacked or whatever. So I think
Yeah.
there's just,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of communication issues in these
Oh
type of
gosh. Well,
relationships.
communication's so hard anyway.
Exactly.
For the most emotionally intelligent or logically intelligent person in the world, it's hard anyway. We're all
Yeah.
so different and unique on our own paths and all of that. And
Yeah.
then you have somebody like my person has definitely shut down verbally, and so he cannot tell me how to do something or give me direction. He would rather me not help him because of
Yeah.
that. And I remember, and just keeping this short, I went to a
Yeah.
school where I could tell immediately that the teacher was autistic because her directions just fell short. And she would look at me like, what do you mean you don't understand? So I finally had to just figure it out by myself how to, but she was so used to doing that. So it's just kind of, you just have to figure out how to do it. Here you go. And
Right.
I know I did it wrong, but I was a sub and I didn't have to come back the next day.
Yay.
but the point of, and we talk about the executive functioning. Well, with Jay, he just would rather not do it, let it fall apart, than just call one person to come out and nail a board together.
Yeah.
He just would rather, and then around our house, now that I'm not there, he put up fences that are way too tall, aesthetically horrific, because the horrible people before us that lived there had it that way. So he did it their way. And I came back, he spent like $4,000. I said, looks horrible. Oh my God. But I wasn't there.
Yeah. You just be
And
like, I didn't have a hand in that, so
that
you
is
can't blame me.
I can't control that and I have to let that go. And that's
Yeah.
part of just the deal with what I gotta do.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. And I'll just because I know we're probably going over,
Yeah,
but
we'll wrap it up.
we'll wrap it up. I do want to come back to my book, of course. My
Oh
brain
yeah.
is so on it, and the Cassandra phenomenon, and just the awareness of us talking is so important. And
Hmm.
there may be somebody just going through this and wondering what the heck. And a lot of times for the beginning Cassandras feel it's their fault. Everything's on them.
Yeah. And
And we're
yeah, and
here to
it's
make it
not.
that it's not. And
I do think you have to take some responsibility in that, okay, my childhood
yes,
traumas made me a people pleaser or,
of
anxiously
course, of
attached or
course.
whatever it is, codependent. Um, but because it takes two to tango. And I
Mhm.
think the healing starts when you recognize, okay, yes, they obviously have a part, but I have a part too because I'm allowing it. I'm allowing myself to, right?
Yes.
And why am I
There,
allowing
there
myself?
were, yeah, there were a lot of women before me that dated him. I met him on eHarmony that just blocked him the next day. What the hell, this weirdo? And and
And you
I will
probably
say,
liked some of his weirdness, right? Like you probably
and I
appreciated that.
and I did, but see, at the time, and so a lot of the times we have to understand too that we may have been in a vulnerable state because
Yeah,
there are very successful women, there are very incredible women. It's not just codependent, it's not just child trauma, it's not
sure.
just, it could be something right at that moment where they just latched onto and we got swept up.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that too, because
Yeah.
it's not that but when we get into the crux of it and we're sucked in because they're like the blob and they just suck us right into this craziness, that's when we have to really look at ourselves and
Yeah.
take that accountability too that, okay, we're allowing this to happen. When are we going to stop allowing this to happen?
Yes. And that's the thing, like the victim
I'm
triangle.
out of the
Okay.
vulnerable state. I'm
Yeah.
out of, yeah.
I'm going to stop being a victim. I'm going to stop trying to
Uh-huh.
rescue him. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to stop letting him bully me. All those, the little victim triangle thing. Like,
hmm
okay, I'm stepping out of that. Let me
hmm
see how can I heal myself and take responsibility for me. And then, sometimes it works. I mean, I've talked to other Cassandras who have created their life in a way where they are happy with their husband or
Uh-huh.
partner.
Me.
right?
living
Like, and
separately.
yeah, and like sometimes it is living apart together. Sometimes it's, I have a very, very active social life outside,
Oh
that
yeah,
has nothing to
that's the
do
only
with
way.
him, or, I have these things that
Yeah.
bring me joy and happiness, and I can be with him because I have so much compassion and love for him. But, then you have the other end of that where you have the more difficult men to be with who are not going to grow, not going to be pleasant to be with, or are going to constantly, some of them are quite abusive. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like,
And
okay,
then some.
I don't have to stay
There's
in
so
this.
many. Yeah, there's so many scenarios. I do have a very good friend with children. And then a lot of times the children may be autistic, ADHD, and
Yeah.
there's just so many variables to it.
Yeah.
And I still to this day, when you told me give yourself grace, I use it all the time. I
Yeah.
even put you in my book. I
Oh,
even
good. Thank
said it
you.
is something, but it's helped me. It's such a big sentence to give yourself grace because
It
we're all in
really,
these situations
yeah.
and it's one day at a time. And sometimes if you just get in the shower, it is a successful
I
day.
yes. I tell people I'm
And
like, you know
then
what? If you got up and you got out of bed, awesome. Let's celebrate. I took a shower. Woohoo. Like
I
some days that's all you can do.
I
And you know what? You are always doing your best. And I had a
yeah,
client argue with me about this, but I'm like, you are doing your best. And you know what? Sometimes our best isn't what a future version of us would think is the best. But
yeah,
at that
right.
moment, you are
It's the
doing your
best.
best.
Yeah, yeah. And it can
So
take
like,
time. And it's very sad there are so many women in our situation. Or
oh,
we're not in our situation right now, but there's
but
so many women that have struggled like we have. And it's a scary thing. And so I like that again, the awareness. And I
yeah,
think even legal issues with divorce this needs to be looked at more and how. And I think it's going to be. I remember hearing a judge I was sitting in on, and he said how the guy wasn't taking accountability. They're looking into mental health. I'm just going back to that too, that we're getting more aware, but there needs to be more because women are suffering still too much.
yeah.
My goodness. Sorry, my dog is on my lap.
You're fine. So
You can hear
cute.
us licking. But he was way shaved and he's cold. He was shaved too close. Anyway,
He's
um, but yeah, end of the day, give yourself grace with everything that
yes.
you're going through. You'll get through it. And in talking to wonderful people like you and getting help and reading books and just
Yeah.
empowering yourself, you can get through it.
Yes. But yeah, compassion, grace,
And
forgiveness.
there's more agencies out there. There's more. It is very hard to leave these guys sometimes. There is that cycle of abuse. There is
Yeah.
that trauma. There is that no matter, and like you said, some are more mean, some are, but
We're
the
all different,
majority
right?
leaving
It's a
this is
spectrum,
hard.
so they're not all the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. And it could take a few years, but give yourself grace. I just love
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
To
Yeah, give
keep
yourself grace and
each
compassion.
day,
And
is a
also
success.
something yesterday
Huh?
from the support group, one of the ladies was I told her
Mm.
a month or so ago, I was like, you know what? Like, stop being on the fence of stay or go. Make a decision. Because when you keep going, oh, maybe I can make it work. No, I want to leave. Maybe I can make it
Uh,
work. When you go back and forth like that, you're splitting your energy and you're not getting anything done. So I'm like, make a decision. Either I'm committing to making this work, or I'm committing to getting out and taking steps to move forward. I said, because just because you make the decision doesn't mean you take action right now,
oh yeah,
right?
right.
Like you can make the decision. And she was like, she came on and she was like, thank you so much for that. She goes, I decided I'm leaving. She goes, and it's so much better now. She was like, now I'm just making the plans and,
Yeah,
working on, okay, I need to have money to support myself and all that stuff. And but I'm like, it frees up your energy to focus
yeah.
on
It
what you
gives you
really
that
need to
strength.
focus on instead of just like, oh, stay, go, stay, go. So I was like, stop doing that to yourself.
Yeah.
And
It's like
like,
you're splitting yourself in half. You're in that limbo stage, which is the
yeah,
worst place to be. It's worse than even being in the abusive
it
situation. It's to
is.
say, should I stay or should I go?
Yeah,
And I went through it for years. I've done it. I've been so financially dependent on him.
yeah,
And now, even right now, and I'll say it's scary, but it's not. You get to the point where, no, this needs to be done. And I
yeah,
have decided to live happily with him.
yeah,
There is a person who said that. I don't want to take that. and I can't remember her name, but live happily with them or live happily without them.
Yeah,
And it
right?
is the
Like,
choice that we have the strength. But if you don't make that choice, and I've seen it in women when they finally decided to go with all the hardships of leaving and the kids, and what do I do? And then the Cassandra syndrome, they don't believe them. They're calling agency after agency. Still, that decision gives them so much more energy they never thought they had.
yeah.
You know this. I'm talking to the,
Yeah, it
yeah, I
does.
love that you
It's
said
like
that.
it's amazing. And I was just like, dude,
Mhm.
just decide and stop doing this to yourself because you could spend years trying to make the decision and give yourself a time limit because I was like
Yes,
because what I did
yes.
to myself for a while was like, oh, I'm gonna wait till after this. Oh, I'm gonna wait till after this. I'm gonna wait till after this birthday,
Uh-huh,
or I'm gonna wait
uh-huh,
till after this trip, or I'm gonna wait.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, I like, there's always something.
Hmm.
So you just have to go, all right, I'm doing it by this date and be done and take that step because once you have all the things in place, so like I had an apartment lined up, all that stuff.
Yeah,
So it's like, okay, you just make that decision and then go and
yeah,
move
yeah,
forward. And it's scary to tell them that you want to leave. You're afraid they're gonna, you don't want to
yes,
feel their hurt and you
yeah,
have guilt and all the things, but like once you do it, it's such a relief.
yeah,
So yeah, but
yes.
yeah, we should wrap up since
Okay,
we're way over.
I
But
love
you and
this.
I could probably have a
I
podcast the last
know,
5 hours.
I know.
Um, but thank you for coming
Great to
on.
talk to you after
It's
not talking to you for a while, and
I
then we just
know.
come right back and we're in it, and it's
Yes.
really we're awesome.
Well, all the we're all kindred sisters with each other,
Yes.
like sisters in Cassandra.
Yeah. We should think we need another name. We need a name after the when
The
Cassandra
post
is
Cassandra, yeah, the
post
healed,
Cassandra, the healed.
the
Think of
healed
a
Cassandra, the standing in her power,
yeah.
doesn't give a crap if anyone believes her, Cassandra. Because yeah, I was like, I'm not really Cassandra anymore. I
That
don't.
wouldn't be a Cassandra. And yeah, no.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll think of
we'll
something.
we'll have to brainstorm.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being
Oh,
on, and
yeah. We'll put
everyone,
this
if
together.
anybody wants to reach out to me,
Yes.
zenmindmichelle.com is my
Hmm.
website, and zenmindmichelle on Instagram, Facebook, and zenmindmichelle@gmail.com. And if anybody wants to go ahead and give your books again,
Oh,
yeah,
yes, yes. So I will be, if you want information on the next book, I do not have a website up yet. And maybe they could go through you,
sure.
Michelle, and find out. I had an issue with my website. And but I am, let's see. I know my first book, Lonely in Love, is on Amazon. It's under D. River Martin. You can just look that up. And it's on audio too. People love audio these days, so
Oh yeah,
I always say that. So yeah, and Kindle and all that good stuff. All
awesome.
right.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being
Thank
on,
you.
and thanks everyone for joining me and Diana today. And we'll see you later.